is aggressively expanding, because I don't feel like the Zerg should be looking to be too aggressive with their army up until they're maxed, and even then, until they're in a position to resaturate instantly. And by saturate, in this case, I mean their army. So I guess I could say resupply for more clarification. But obviously the caveats would be if they got over-aggressive and you want a conflict, they're out of position, they're aggressively expanding, or you're just better than them and you find that you're just way ahead. For the most part, you shouldn't be looking for a full-on army versus army conflict until that situation permits itself. So one of the ways you can kind of egg on the Protoss player or take advantage of their passive play as well is aggressively expanding. So there's cornerstone units in all three races, and when I say cornerstone units in this case, I mean units that allow you to aggressively expand economically. And Burrowed Roach, as soon as that's researched and viable, is one of them, because they won't have an observer if they've expanded, for the most part, in which case they won't have any ability to stop you from taking that aggressive third. So pushing it to the high yield, I find, will more often than not force the Protoss psychologically to go, well, I got to go after that. There's no way I can let him sit on that. There's just no way in hell. When in reality, it's not. I mean, it's an awesome expansion, obviously, but a calm, cool, and collected Protoss that's still waiting on their 3 or 4 Colossus timing would be fine against that. But what it does do to a lot of Protoss is it makes them think, like I just said, oh my God, I have to go right now. And that's that kind of passive-aggressive aggression through expanding that I really like. But the mental disconnect that occurs and makes this ineffective is a lot of Zergs will do that. They'll aggressively expand, but then not like mentally contribute what they're doing to what's going to happen in the game. So they're like, oh my God, the Protoss timing game, I can't believe that's so stupid. What a terrible game. But in fact, what they were doing was egging the Protoss on to doing that. Or even in the other matchups, Terran. You can aggressively expand against Terran as well. Some of the other cornerstone units in the other matchups, like ZvT, is the Baneling. The Baneling will do more damage than the cost of the actual unit, if used properly. So in that case, you can be safe against a bio-opening Terran and take a third, maybe even a fourth. It's when they tech to tanks and they have Thors out or a Marauder count, and they're actually able to tank your Baneling damage, that then it becomes, oh, okay, I need other units to support these Banelings.
Cool.
And that's something I actually just got done talking about with Idra on the Coach's Corner.
I listened to that last night.
Yeah. He says if he sees 4 racks openings, you can count on Baneling speed first, and then probably a fast third, maybe fourth.
Yeah. That was, you know what, it might be a good time to kind of plug those Coach's Corner podcasts, because you haven't yet. There's a lot of really cool stuff that goes on in those. And where can we download those? Is that at Ghostly Coaching?
It is at ghostcoaching.com. There are VODs available. Basically, it's just a technical podcast. We don't do any of the funny business, no drama, none of that gossipy stuff. It's more just we sit down, and actually it might as well be called the Ghostly Coach's Zerg Coaching Corner for right now, because we've done 4 shows, and I think 3 of them have specifically focused on Zerg. But when you have Idra on a podcast, I mean, it would be kind of a waste to talk about something else, in my opinion. So that's definitely something to check out. He gets real in-depth. It's about an hour long, and we just talk about ZvT specifically. We don't even get into ZvP, but we just hammer at ZvT at this last session. And we're going to make that regular. In February, it's going to be on a regular time, both live and recorded for everyone's listening pleasure.
Fantastic. All right, so let me bounce right back and ask you one more question before we sort of jump in and start playing some games. And you talked about this some in regards to your Protoss play, I think, last week. But when do I need to change it up and do something cheesy, all-in, and aggressive?
That's a really good question. I would say that this stuff, and here's the thing, most people are not clan war, tournament, traveling players, but that certainly doesn't mean you can't play in clan wars, in LANs, in tournaments. So it's really important to practice specifically for that, because you cannot just mass ladder mindlessly and be prepared for a LAN or a tournament. You have to have an idea of what a best of 3 or a best of 5 is going to look like for you. And to answer your question specifically, that's where this kind of play comes in. So you have to understand mentally how this functions. If you open up, like let's say the first map's Delta Quadrant, and as a Zerg you're like, you son of a bitch, this is such a terrible map. This might be a good map to do a couple of things. One, non-standard play, right? Standard play on this map is just slightly less efficient. It's because of that forward expansion, The Protoss is able to kind of apply pressure to your open the reasons go on. It's a tough map for Zerg. It's not impossible, but it's tough. Actually, just yesterday I faced Energy Ostajoy, or Ostagy, or something. I can't even say his name. Yep. Ostogiy, a great Zerg. And on that map, he tricked me. It all looked standard, but they needed the Roach Ling kind of high aggression in close positions. And when I moved down with 8 or 9 sentries and just a stalker and a couple of zealots, that's not enough to take on an army. Even if I block him off, it's a losing battle. So I had to cancel and move up my ramp, and it was a favorable situation for him. So in that case, in that best of 3, I was not expecting that because the game before was purely standard, right? So that's what you guys need to practice on the ladders. If you get Delta Quadrant against a Protoss, say, okay, I'm going to refine that build that Mr. Bitter and iNcontroL were talking about because I'm heading to that, or I want to head to that LAN in 2 weeks, or I want to qualify for a TSL Open, or give it my best shot. You do have to know how to play a best of 3. You cannot do the same build order 3 times.
Yeah.
So the way that irregular play functions is it throws your opponent off. If I play a super, I mean, that's actually a huge part of my success as a Protoss player, is I will open up shark mode, straight up macro, standard game 1, and then the next game I'll be doing a hardcore 4-gate. It's on opposite ends of the spectrum, and it completely keeps my opponent on their heels. And that's how I win a lot of my best of 3s, is I do a super macro standard game, and then the next game I follow it up with the cheesiest shit you've ever seen in your life. And that's why I'm unpredictable. And then in future best of 3s, or in future tournaments, people are going, okay, what are the things iNcontroL does? And they'll be like, well, son of a bitch, I've seen him do it all, actually, so I don't really know. And that's how I want to play.
Yeah.
That's where a guy like Idra actually kind of suffers, because he's so damn good, but he's so consistently the same that a lot of people can prepare against that. And that's actually what's happened to him in a few of these big tournaments.
Yep, totally agree. All right. Well, I have my buddy J-Mag, who we played it with the other night. He's ready to play some games if we need a practice partner.
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do some irregular, cheesy shit.
Fantastic. And the way I'm kind of going to treat this is, I'm actually in a party with him. Would you like me to invite you as well?
Sure, yeah. We just can't host 2-person maps, and when we do, you'll just have to kick me off the party or something like that.
No problem. Where is iNcontroL? He's on here somewhere.
I've got so many friends now. I'm all successful.
Alright, here he is. Here is iNcontroL, as he makes fun of me in his carbon voice. Alright, so the way I'm going to kind of treat this is I'm going to pretend like me and J-Mag are playing, we'll say a best of 7.
Okay.
So I have to
finals for a tournament or something?
Yes, it's the World Series of StarCraft. And
is he listening? Because that's the thing about irregular play. It's good to work on it, obviously, but if your opponent, like for these training purposes, knows it's coming, it gets diluted big time, because it's actually, like I can't sit down with Machine and say, okay, Machine, do 2 hatch Roach Ling all ins for the next hour and a half.
Right.
Because eventually, after the first 3, I'll be like blind countering the shit out of it, and then it's not a real test.
Yep. All right. So I guess we'll just approach this like I said, like this best of X format. We're gonna go loser picks, and yes, anything goes. And I have to scout. He has to scout. We're just playing like normal style, but we're being mindful of this cheese dynamic that we're kind of talking about this week. We're going to try to mix that in some. So I guess from this point forward, I'll just shut up and listen to you, Jeff.
Okay. Now, psychologically, there's a couple of schools of thought here. It's a best of 7 or best of 3, whatever. It's an extended series of these 2 guys playing. Something's on the line. So you want to kind of get in the head of your opponent. In one of the cool ways, and I'm sure Chill talked a lot about this. Did he talk about how to properly saturate the high yield as well and stuff? Cats. Listen, Chill.
Yes.
Damn it, cats.
Well, he said 2 drones per patch, and he said like in one of his games he took a super early gold, and he basically took all of his drones and sent them to that gold.
That's exactly what I was getting at, because that's weird. A lot of people would look at that and be like, what? But actually, the loss of mining time while they're traveling is made up by the fact that they bring in so much more money.
Yes.
You want to bring your whole mineral line, but it looks weird because you do bring most of it.
And just Katz's play in general was pretty like he's going hatch first when when it's a pretty general consensus that hatch first is really dangerous.
It is, but I mean, think about it though. That's part of why he's tough to play against for a lot of people, because they don't know. Is he? He's capable of expanding the high yield. He's capable of hatch first. He's capable of pool first. He does a lot of like drone harasses versus Terran.
Yeah.
So he's quite difficult to play, and actually opening up one of the best safe yet still pseudo risky things you could do right now is like hatch first. Now it's kind of tough because you did you revealed your overlord. He spotted it. So most Protoss will send that probe right over there.
We're being cheesy.
What'd you say?
I said I'm gonna take hatch first at the gold since we're being cheesy.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And this is probably suicidal, but we'll see.
Yeah, it is between the two of you, but actually, of all the positions to take the high yield, this is probably the better one. Just because you are leaning towards the Protoss, so yes, it's dangerous because it's extended towards him, but at the same time, you really only have to defend that one alley. I mean, you can, as long as you're scouting that alley, you should be fine. And I like this, so a lot of people who are watching right now, he sent the drone down there, making it look like he wants to expand there, and look at that, and sure enough, it's sold, the pylon's there. And now everything back at home looks like an impromptu, spawning pool. Like, I wanted to hatch first, now I'll just have to go ahead and play spawning pool up here. And if you don't do these things, you just take hatch first there, you don't sell the drone, you don't make it look like you've been messed up, then the Protoss will catch on to what's going on and will start scouting around. Just watch that drone. There you go. One thing I can say is you probably should not populate that hatchery until this probe is killed, though.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've never done this, obviously, but I think you would want to take your gas.
Yeah, I'm probably going to want speed.
You do want to put a queen up at that extra hatchery, though, right away, and your main. And you're going to lose this drone. Oh, I spoke too soon. Pardon me, sir. Nice. Okay, so we got the probe. And don't send the drones until his pylon's gone. And then you really need to watch that tower, and also watch your overlord at the base of his ramp. Cyber's core is finished. Something is coming out of there. You don't have to sacrifice an overlord just yet. Good. And then this big-ass drone saturation. Good. Now the risk here is short-term. It's not a long-term risk. I mean, there is, obviously the fact that you're on an island in the middle of the map is dangerous, but you really have to be watching to make sure he doesn't send out a scout. And then all these overlords have to be working for you, so make sure you have the space between your two bases covered. And I think if we were to do this over again, we want speed at a normal time, right? Yeah. So that you could run down a scouting probe. Because if he clicks on your minerals from his base, he will see that something's up. But a lot of Protoss actually don't do that scout.
Fucking French people. So I feel like I'm in a position where I can expand again, because I just have so much income.
Yep, you want to take your natural. You have Ling speed going, and you probably, with this build, have to make a Roach Warren perhaps before you even make your lair. Just to be safe, because if he turns us around and starts getting aggressive, you have to be between a couple of places. And I think ideally with this build, too, you want to get an early creep tumor down. See how your money's floating at about like 200, but you don't have enough larvae to spend it. Well, it's not the larva, actually. It's now we're low on money. So we've got speedlings out. You're going to lose this overload. You've got to rebuild it right away. And then you do want to get that lair pretty quick, quick to normal. It's that roach speed that's going to make you safe.
Okay, as soon as my queens pop.
And you're actually oversaturated at the high yield, so just make sure you watch that. You only need 3 per mineral. And right now you have 24 drones.